Hello everybody, this is Aspen coming from Aspen's Place Recording Studios again. We had a lot of requests for the virtual guitar demonstrations. We like the Helix, the Fractal Axe effects, which you'll see here. And I have with me the highly recommended Rosh Roslin, who is their West Coast demo guy. And he is an amazing guitar player. He's working a lot. He uses the Fractal device in the Axe effects in a live situation, which is really what we're finding more and more guys that working with the virtual guitar stuff is doing. So welcome, Rosh.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you.
Of course.
So I understand we gave you one to play around with, and you use it on a gig. And
yeah, it was really great, because one of the issues that I always run into with running a stereo rig is you put it in front of house and you have your left side and your right side, and then all your delays and reverbs panning between both has to create a phantom center image.
Right.
That's why a lot of guys back then, they used to use a wet, dry, wet rig. So the dry center kind of kept all the tone grounded in the center. Mm-hmm. If you're running strictly stereo, which a lot of these new units are basically doing, creates a phantom stereo image. So there's always this, like, it sounds really good if you're in the center of the room, but sometimes the audience is only hearing one side of the delays, or they're going, wow, that guitar player is playing out of time, because they're always hearing maybe one of the pongs or the pings is coming out of time. So one thing
I call that politically incorrect. You're too far to the left or too far to the right.
Exactly. So,
and all the good stuff is in the center.
Exactly. So one of the things that was great about this was since it stayed in the center,
right,
it kind of filled out the whole room that way. You had the thing that all guitar players love, where they hear all the reverbs and delays kind of swirling around them, but the audience can also hear it.
Right.
And then the other thing is, too, that it creates a really strong center image.
Yeah, center point stereo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think guitar players are used to using an amp right behind them, so the center point thing. That is a really good point, because it is a strong center, and then you can vary your width control for how wide you need it in the variants, but you always have a strong center.
Yeah, exactly. And, the other thing is, too, because you're running into front of house anyway, you don't need to, like, crank up what's going on stage, getting, the classic. You start the set at 5, and then by the end of the third song, you're ready on 10, and the singer can't hear themselves.
Exactly.
The drummer's, bashing.
And it gets into all the vocal mics, so it's better if you got a big wide sound that isn't really direct. I tell people a lot that working with a center point stereo is a lot like working with a light bulb versus a flashlight.
Right.
Because you have to be right in the spot where most guitar amps are loud, which is on axis in the center. And if you're off axis, then it's hard for everybody else to hear you.
Right.
Or you hear yourself too loud. And with this, because of the 300-degree sound field, and it's a lot easier to acclimate yourself to the stage volume that everybody wants to hear you at.
Yeah, and you make a good point about that, because a lot of guitar players, too, they're used to having, like, their cab behind them. It's blowing all the sound past their kneecaps, but our kneecaps don't really have ears or anything. So they're used to hearing it that way. Since this actually fills up, like, what's going on, it has this kind of sense of, like, being louder than it really is.
Right.
You can hear yourself a lot clearer, and you don't need to crank up to do it.
Usually the band members comment on that. I don't know if any of your guys mentioned they could hear you better when you were playing in that environment.
Yeah, especially like the drummers were always like, you're using like closed back cabinets.
Right.
Drummers are always like, well, I can't hear the guitar, so they just kind of tend to ignore what you're doing.
Sometimes the drummer doesn't want to hear the guitar.
That's true.
No, I'm just kidding. Usually they play off the bass player.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was kind of...
It's nice when they can hear it.
Yeah, it's nice when they can hear it, but they can also respond to what you're playing.
Exactly.
The other thing is, too, most songs either start with the drummer counting it in or the guitar player counting it in. And I've noticed this kind of thing happening where if you're playing, let's say you start the song, the drummer's hearing the reflection off the back of the room or something in a small club.
Little delay.
Yeah, and so you'll be playing at some tempo, then the drummer comes in, and it's not where you were the tempo. And a lot of times it's because they're hearing what's kind of happening in the room.
Latency.
Rather than... Yeah, exactly. They're hearing what's happening in the room rather than what you were actually playing.
Cool. That's great.
So a lot of those things were really great experience.
Cool. Well, we've had a lot of videos telling you how Space Station works, and this is the V3, and so basically he's running a V3 with the one output of the fractals going right into the left and right channel. We've got the horn and the tweeter just a little bit above 12 o'clock, a little bit wide on, a little bit above 12 o'clock on the width control, and then at a level that's pleasant that you're going to be able to hear. We're recording this with an MS microphone system, which is a good way of recording stereo if you've got an MS speaker.
For those of you guys that are used to using the Axe effects, there is output 1, which has XLR outs, which you can send to front of house, and simultaneously you can use those to plug into the Space Station. And then you can also use the output 2 as well to send
Perfect.
another.
Well, enough talking, and we want to do some playing. And I'm going to have you, as you go through it, maybe show some of these patches that you're using with
Sure.
it. And I know you've got a defeat switch on there, so you can kind of show it with the mono as opposed to the stereo.
Right.
So you can actually see what the space station is adding. And so I'll just ask you to narrate that as you go along.
Sure. Awesome.
And thanks a lot. And we'll see you later.
All right, so let's go through a couple sounds that I've been using with the space station. The first thing that we're going to do is we're running in stereo. We have all the sounds ready to go. On my expression pedal, it swells in the effect and swells out, as well as I assigned one of the buttons on the MFC to go between mono and stereo. So you can hear kind of what the space station is doing, and then when I take it out, you can hear it kind of just, sucks kind of the life out of the sound by going to mono. So this is like a clean patch with some, kind of like 80s kind of reverb and delay and chorus and stuff. So. You'll notice right away you get a really wide sound. It sounds really big and great. You can even see on the screen the kind of the patch I'm using. I'm using a compressor going into a shiver clean, and then I'm using the pitch block to kind of do a detuned chorus sound, adding a little bit of reverb, a little bit of chorus, and you get this kind of sound. One of the things that happens is if you take actually the stereo image out of it, go straight to mono. I mean, it still sounds pretty good, but you don't get the wideness. You get everything is just kind of straight up the middle. And if I go all the way clean, it's just kind of a very lifeless, clean sound. Even putting the stereo back in, without the effects, it kind of just gives it a sense of depth. It's pretty big. You get this kind of cool like stereo image. One of the things that you can do also in the Axe effects is, since you're using stereo cabs, you can assign the left side and the right side to be different types of cabinets. So you can really custom tailor your sound so that you can basically pick anything that you want. You can set it anywhere in the stereo field, and actually the space station will kind of help build your sound doing that. One of the other great things about the space station is, of course, using it with a lot of delays and reverbs. So I kind of made a patch that was kind of first stereo panning delays, kind of a dotted A thing. All right, so for the last sound I came up with, this was kind of real standard lead guitar sound, kind of 80s-esque, where you're getting one side is 500 milliseconds, one side is 375. It's very standard. Kind of almost like a 80s lead sound or some soaring lead sound for like hard rock kind of thing. And what I've done with this patch is I've assigned the expression controller to adjust the mix and the input gain of the delay. And again, you can hear kind of the multi-tap delay panning back and forth. But the cool thing is that because it's stereo, it doesn't get in the way of your lead sounds. So when you're playing, you'll notice right away that the lead notes poke through, and the delay just kind of sits in the back. And as you fade it out, as the notes decay from their sustain, the delay kind of washes in. It always just stays out of the way. So the cool thing is you can be... You'll notice right away that if I'm playing fast passages, one of the complaints that I've always dealt with is that when you're trying to play something really fast and really intricate, sometimes the delays just totally tumble and stack on top of the notes. And one of the issues is always, oh, you gotta, mess with the delays and, duck the delays or do anything like that. As you'll notice, I'm not even using the expression pedal to fade in the delays. They just stay out of the way. Then the delays kind of come in right after the note. But that's in stereo. If I actually run it in mono, the delays are just going to get right in the way. It just kind of, again, neuters the sound. It just makes it sound like it's very one-dimensional. Sounds just like you're using a very cheap rig or something. It just kind of sounds like there's nothing going on. So I bring the stereo back in. One of the great things is that even in a room, any size club, it sounds like you're in an arena, which is really awesome. So you get this sense of depth and you get this sense of wideness and space in your sound. And you could be playing the smallest 100-person club, or you can be playing on some of the biggest stages in the world. And by having the space station kind of fill out your sound, you can take your tones anywhere, and it still sounds the same and consistent no matter what room you're in.
Rosh, that was amazing. I learned stuff. Actually, I've got an Axe FX I got to start playing with, but I don't think I'm going to get to your level anytime soon. For all you guys that have been asking us to feature a Fractal Axe FX, thank you, Andrew at Fractal, for sending us the contact for Rosh and also a unit to play with here in the studio. We're going to be doing some playing with that. And thank you, Rosh, for coming by and educating us.
Sure.
It was really terrific. You gave me a lot of stuff I hadn't even realized before, especially that strong center point.
Yes.
Forgot that, and of course we are called center point, so I should have. Sometimes you're so close to it you just lose it, but you did a great job, and those are really great patches, and really appreciate you coming out.
Sure, thank you so much for having me.
Bye, everybody.